The other thing we wanted to talk about was the ratings. Now, I'm the ratings guy in addition to being an ROH historian, and and one thing I've noticed of late is one company's on the way up and the other one's kind of seems to be on the way down a little bit, and it's not what it's been for the last 3 years. WWE has some momentum, and AEW Dynamite's doing all right. It's not blowing the world on fire, and especially when you look at the year over years, it's actually a year ago. Raw and Dynamite were basically head to head in 18 to 49, and this past week, now granted, there was reasons for it, but this past week, Raw almost doubled last week's Dynamite in 18 to 49, and then you look at Rampage, which is setting all-time lows for that show. 375,000 viewers and a 0.11 in 18 to 49 last week, which is the lowest they've ever done in that time slot. And the 18 to 49 is the lowest they've ever done, period. Even when they bid 2:30 in the afternoon and, midnight and, everything in between. And, and I found like what the key thing I noticed, and this is the first time it's ever happened, was all three shows for WWE, and we're talking Raw, SmackDown, NXT, we're all up year over year, and the Dynamite was down year over year. And of course, we don't have a year of Rampage yet. Next week we will. But I suspect those Rampage numbers are going to be down year over year as well, because they started out pretty hot and just their ratings started here and just went downhill. So it's interesting, and I think AEW had the benefit of being the hot thing in town, and it was the hot thing everyone was talking about, and people were jumping on the bandwagon. And then you had things like Sting coming back and Shaq, Punk, all this stuff, and they pulled all this stuff out, and they got some momentum, and then now the momentum's going the other way, and I don't know what they do to turn it around. I mean, you got Punk coming back, you got Omega coming back, but I don't think that's going to have anywhere near the impact it had the first time. And WWE has momentum right now, and they're the established brand.
Yeah, they're Coke.
Right. And that's the thing. And when they're good, which they're pretty good right now, people are going to choose the established brand for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, Big Mo is putting on a WWE jersey. I wouldn't say that, but wrestling in general has a ways to go to get to heights it was at. But at the same time, look, number one, Rampage is on a bad night at a bad time on a cable network, as opposed to SmackDown, which is on a broadcast network. It's also definitely seen as a B show. It's been treated a lot like a B show in terms of it's been the Ring of Honor show for a while, and it's people who really don't matter to Dynamite, although they're getting a world title match on Friday, but it's Jon Moxley versus a guy nobody knows.
It's actually a non-title match.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. A title eliminator.
I mean, it's a guy that wrestling fans know, but it's not a guy that, people who watch the TV product who don't watch the indies know. And
there's like 15,000 people that watch MLW that know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Mance Warner.
Oh, I do too. I'm just saying, the general public, most people couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
It might as well just be Jon Moxley in action.
Yes. I think on the Dynamite side, it goes to just a certain concentration, not just on in-ring product, but on these special TV events every 3 weeks where they're just not building feuds.
No.
They're not building a lot of heat in the feuds. And I think, look, wrestling was popular on TV just doing, 30-second squash matches and 90-second promos for a number of years for a reason, because these are who the stars are, and then you'd go to a live event and see them. Now, AEW does not run live events except for the pay-per-views, granted. But at the same time, I mean, it's a miracle when somebody's allowed to complete a promo, because we've watched too much WWE over the years where everybody interrupts promos. That one of their best talkers is persona non grata in MJF.
Yeah.
When people imitate wrestlers at the water cooler or in the playground or whatever, they're rarely doing moves a lot of times. Sometimes they are, but they're usually doing catchphrases and character and attitude and stuff like that. And there's not a lot of that in this product. There just isn't. I mean, there's not a lot of differentiation in a lot of people sometimes. I just think I don't. I've never liked WWF WWE. It's always been secondary to the stuff I like, which is just, I mean, but you see it in crowd reactions all the time. People just want to see smack talking and fake fighting. That's all wrestling has to be. And you saw it on, especially on Monday, if you watch like when the women were doing that beatdown, the crowd just went nuts for it because it was a fight, and that's what people want.
They got a shit finish, and they still loved it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there seemed to be heat in there, and there seemed to be anger in there, and people liked Bailey coming back, and people underestimate Bailey and Sasha during the pandemic era carrying that company on the back.
Oh. Yeah.
And there was a rumor that Sasha and Naomi were going to be back this week. So that's probably a big, those two reasons are probably big as to why the ratings were up on Raw. But year over year, look, WWE concentrates on character. And as much as we don't like a lot of it with the catchphrases and shoving it down your throats and t-shirts, every other week and things like that, there is a kernel of truth to it that AEW, they have it in Danielson, they have it in Punk, they have it in MJF, they have it in a few different people. Moxley. But they don't, but it's not, and Eddie Kingston especially. Eddie Kingston's always must watch. And it hasn't really spread out to the rest of the roster yet. I think they're relying on wrestling fan goodwill just a little too much. Just a little. It's not a bad thing, but character matters in wrestling. And I'm not saying they need to be bold and brash with everything, but let's see some fire. Let's build some feuds over the weeks as opposed to just plugging the next event.
Well, here's the thing. Like, this is one thing WWE is actually, like, if I think back to like 2 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer than that, AEW, like when they had a pay-per-view coming, like, okay, we're 5 weeks away from All Out, maybe less. Yeah, no, it's 5. So we have no idea what's going to be on that card right now. Nothing other than Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston, which makes no sense. And it hasn't even been built. Although I'm sure people will tell me, oh, those factions have been feuding and blah, blah, and they'll pick some move out that happened in one of their matches. Yeah. But it's not like they have heat, like the two of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, like with WWE, they've got the main event of Clash of the Castles already set. Mm-hmm. You can already see other feuds that are building, and you know where they're going. You watch the Raw after SummerSlam, you can have a pretty good idea of what's going to be happening at the next pay-per-view.
Right.
Whereas Dynamite, it's week to week. And then they build the pay-per-view like the last week or two. 2 years ago, they had the pay-per-views lined up ahead of time, and anybody that was smart, that knew what was going on, knew where they were going.
The best program they've done is CM Punk MJF, and they built that thing for weeks.
Yeah. And Jericho and Moxley and Sammy, Sammy and MJF had one. I remember MJF and Cody. I mean, that went months. MJF and Wardlow, 2 years,
Yes.
Like, so these are long-term things. And now they're just like, it's freaking Crash TV, and it's good Crash TV. Don't get me wrong.
It's high quality. Crash
it's entertaining,
TV, but you never hear any of these guys. I hate you. I hate you. I want to beat you up. I want to break your arm.
Or when they do, it's out of nowhere.